Today we are examining a trading journal from a user that reached out because he needs help with his Edgewonk. So hello, welcome to a new review, and if you are an Edgewonk user or if you think about becoming an Edgewonk user, make sure to check the link in the description below for information around our free review service where you can send us your trading journal and we will dissect it, we will analyze it and provide tips on how to move forward. So whenever we open a trading journal and it looks something like this, that the performance graph looks somewhat distorted, the first thing that you should be doing is go to the settings and check if you have entered an initial deposit. Whenever your performance graph doesn't look quite right, then very often the initial deposit or a missing initial deposit is usually the reason for that. So we go to settings, and when we go to the deposit and withdrawal section, you can see that there's no initial deposit entered. And it's very, very important that you have an initial deposit because otherwise your metrics will be off. So when we go to the home tab again, you can see the performance figures. They show you something between negative 2,000 and positive 5,000 percentage return. Obviously that doesn't look right. Also the graph here is a little bit flatlining, which usually also is a sign that something is wrong. When you go to the journal itself and when you scroll to the right to the column where you see the percentage gain on loss for your trade, also here the numbers look off. The red background are trades that are marked as a losing trade, but you can see those often have a positive number here, whereas the green background colors, they are winning trades, but they have a negative performance. So something is not quite right here. You basically just have to go to your journal. You have to find out when did you enter your first trade. You can just scroll down or you can order it by entry date, by exit date. And you can see the first trade has been entered somewhat around April of 2019. So we want to make sure that our initial deposit is set before that. So we go to the settings, we go to the withdrawals and deposits, and then you can just select here your date. So we can go to 2019. It doesn't really matter. You just want to make sure that it is set before the first trade. When it is, it doesn't really matter. So if you want to be safe, you can go way in advance and way before that. Then you just type in the amount and then you give the reason. You can just write in initial deposit. Then you press on add and you can see it is here. And now when we go to the home tab, it should look very different. And you can see this looks much more reasonable. You have those swings, you have a nice graph, and the last part, which was flatlining before, is now actually moving. So it's really important that you do that and you have an initial deposit. When we go back to the journal and when we go now to this area, you can see that the percentage gain now looks more reasonable. The negative performance figures are the losers. The winners have positive ratings and values. So this is a very important step to make sure that your whole journal is actually quite right. The next thing that I noticed in this journal is that when you scroll to the take profit and the stop loss area, very often this trader entered a value of 0 for both the take profit and the stop loss. This means that your reward to risk ratio and your R multiple figures will be off because they need to have valid stop loss and take profit values. And if you enter a 0 level here and a 0 value, then your metrics will be distorted. Also the PCP and the PCR won't work as they should because the calculations are using those 0 values. So it is really important that you invest some time in entering your trades, especially when you want to analyze your reward to risk ratio, when you want to analyze your trade management, when you want to analyze your R multiple figures, then the take profit and the stop loss must be filled out. Very important as well is that you always have the initial values for take profit and stop loss. Often, once a trader is in the trade and once the price moves, then a trader may move the stop loss, he may move the take profit order to just react to sudden moves in the market. But in Edgewonk, it's really important that you always keep your initial take profit and stop loss values in those columns. This will make sure that all the calculations are done correctly in Edgewonk. The reason is that when you go then to the chart lab and when you go to the trade management, those graphs are not really representing your real trading data because they are based on the zero value. So you really need to make sure to have actual take profit and stop loss values if you want to analyze your trade management, for example. Another thing that I noticed for this trader is that he didn't fully enter the comments about entries, exit, and trade management, which then means that the tilt meter is not really populating. So you can see there are stretches of no tilt meter readings at all, and this is usually then caused by not filled out entry, exit, and trade management. And especially new traders, when you want to analyze your discipline, when you want to check how well you can stick to your rules, how often do you break your rules, the tilt meter together with the entry, exit, and trade management comments are really, really important, because they will immediately show you how well are you doing, how well are you respecting your rules, and how much money is it actually costing you when you're not respecting your rules. So we totally understand that when you open your trade pop-up window, there are a lot of entry prices and there are a lot of input fields. And for new traders, we don't recommend that you fill out everything at once. It might be overwhelming. So stick to the mandatory features and stick to the mandatory input fields, which are the general trade data. You want to have your entry price, the stop loss, the take profit. You want to have your exit data. You don't necessarily need the price behavior, which is optional, but you really want to make sure that you have your stop loss and your take profit filled out. You also want to make sure that you have your trade comments filled out, which are your entry, exit, and trade management. So you can see here, for example, for the entry, you have values such as too early, perfect entry, not in your trading plan, you broke your rules, and you followed your rules. Also for the exit and the trade management, that's really, really important. And especially new traders will often benefit from those the most. You don't need to initially care too much about your custom statistics, the price behavior, and all of those other things. But you really want to make sure that you have the core input values in your Edgewonk entered so that you can start with your journaling routine. Otherwise, the data that you get is not really going to be very helpful. And it doesn't take a lot of time to fill out the entry, exit, and trade management comments. It doesn't also take too much time to enter your stop loss and take profit price. But the value that you get from entering those criteria and those input values is really, really going to be a very big game changer for many traders. So for this trader going forward, I would really recommend to always fill out the entry, the exit, and the trade management comments, and also be very careful with entering stop loss and take profit prices. He will then be able to use all other Edgewonk features and really dig into his trading performance. A quick tip when it comes to using, for example, the trade analytics. So here we have added the trade exit. If you haven't used the trade analytics, it will look something like this. And here you have the ordering criteria. So let's put the trade exit back on. You just double click on it, then it comes to the ordering criteria. And now you can look at your trade exit comments. So for 37 and for here 24 values, he did not enter any trade exit comments. So again, I would really recommend to change that. And the first step is that we always order it by the sum of the game because we want to look for outliers. Outliers are usually the best way to start for performance improvement. So whenever you see that there is a big outlier, then try to work on it. And you can see the trades where he did not set his trade exit, those are the big losses. So it's really, really recommended that he focuses on looking into those trades a little bit more in depth and is on top of his journaling game. We can also look at the trade entry comments, for example. And again, we want to order it by the sum of the game to look for outliers. You can see here 24 trades were marked with too early, and those are the biggest losses. When he broke his rules, only 2 trades, but also a negative performance of $55 US. And you can see when we look at the expectancy, this is a huge negative expectancy for the trades that he broke his rules. So there are only 2 trades that fall into his category, but they amount to a large loss. So something here is going wrong, probably stop loss management, or maybe even he's taking too much risk for those trades. So something that the trader should consider going forward. Again, he has not entered a trade entry comment for 34 of his trades. And again, he is missing out on a lot of information. He's already committing to the journal. He's already entering some of his trades in the right way, but without being fully on top of your journaling game, you are missing out a lot on the details and the insights that you will gain from your journal. So if you have issues with your Edgewonk, it doesn't look quite right, and you want to understand how to move forward, I think this review is providing a lot of information and tips on how to improve the quality of your journal data and how to move on with your Edgewonk routine.